Howdy there, folks. We're a little bit behind schedule, but we've got Blake with a semi-decent microphone going, so we at least have some audio. We'll take it.
My delay was definitely shorter than that intro, so that's as long as I'm there. I almost fell asleep on the sully lullabies of or slow lullabies of the intro. So
yeah, well, you know, every once in a while, as Nick says, you got to slip the bass. Sometimes it's a little upbeat. This is a busy week, I think, for a lot of people, especially in bourbon media. It's Bourbon Heritage Month. It's Kentucky Bourbon Festival. It's Bourbon and Beyond. There's a lot of shit happening this week, so there's we got to have some kind of moves you into it. But this is also going to be like a really big sneak peek for everybody that is joining us live, because this won't even come out until next Thursday. So you're going to be 1 week ahead of everybody else.
In the know.
So much is going to change between now and then.
It's true.
We'll be wrong in more ways than normal.
That's right.
Well, it's like we'll take this week's news, but it'll be old news by next week. That's kind of it's weird how bourbon does that in general. Everybody gets hung up on something, and it's crazy news for 24 hours, and then nobody gives a shit about it ever again.
That's all news.
Super short news cycle.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't think that's bourbon.
That's not bourbon related. That's just
it's everywhere.
Everybody's got their goldfish, level of how kind of attention span. That's kind of what it comes down to. Yeah. All right. Well, y'all ready to kick it off then?
Let's roll.
Let's do it.
Let's go ahead and do it. I'll move my notes in the way here too. All right, here we go. Welcome back, everybody. It is another fantastic Bourbon Community Roundtable, number 72. I was actually going to try to say it in Spanish, but I don't think I can do 72 in Spanish. It's been a while since I've taken a foreign language, so I didn't want to try to do that one out there. But we have done this a lot now, and now we got Ryan and I here tonight from the Bourbon Pursuit crew. At some point, I think we've just got to drop Fred. He's just becoming dead weight here. He hasn't joined a Bourbon Community Roundtable in a while.
He told me he doesn't like these guys.
They stink.
Yeah, it sounds right.
Yeah. He got tired of Blake's mic issues and just said he couldn't deal with it.
He fixes one thing, he gets the internet fixed, and now we got mic issues, but it's okay. We'll get there. We're 5 years later. We're still, it's
by number 100,
innovation.
we're definitely going to be dialed in.
Yes.
We hope.
As Dave says, don't even try Spanish because Dave says that I struggle enough with English, which is true.
Fair enough.
Yes. So let's go ahead. Let's do a quick round of introductions, and then we'll dive into it. We'll start off with the guy here to our far right, which is our resident lawyer, should I say, the one that we pay all the big bucks to for all the good legal advice.
There you go. Happy Wednesday. Well, this won't be out on a Wednesday, but live today anyways. Thanks for having me again on number 72, Brian with Sip and Corn. Find me on the socials there and bourbonjustice.com.
And now that we don't have to worry about Bourbon Justice falling on your back, we were in the green room before we came on, and that big book cover just like whopped him in the head. You all missed a pretty good blooper moment.
If only I knew a lawyer, I could sue the homeowner here.
Blake, go ahead, buddy.
Yeah, I'm Blake from Bourboner and sealbox.com. So always fun to be here. Thanks for having me.
For sure. And Jordan.
Hey guys, I'm Jordan, one of the three guys from Breaking Bourbon. You can find us at Breaking Bourbon or breakingbourbon.com. Always a pleasure to be here and chat with you boys.
And you're also batting 100 when it comes to having zero microphone issues whatsoever.
We try our best here, Kenny.
They see the hazing Blake gets every time. So they're scared.
Try to avoid it at all costs.
Yeah.
That's what it comes out to. And thank you so much for everybody that is joining us live here. Always love to have your commentary in the comments. I guess that's where it goes. And if you have something good to say, we'll put it up on screen and probably maybe add it into the podcast as well. So thank you, everybody that is joining us live here tonight. So let's go ahead. Let's kick it off. We've got 3 really good topics, and some of these are kind of really dialed into a particular brand and really niche focus. And then some are kind of, I guess you'd say, a little abstract. And so this first one's going to be a little abstract. So let's kind of get into this one. So we know that right now, everybody's expanding. There are new distilleries coming online. You see Blue Run dumping a new $51 million. You see there's another one that's going to start with 3 letters. That's going to do like $200 million. Buffalo Trace is doing $1 billion expansion. Heaven Hill is doing $150 or $100 million new distillery. So we see that new distilleries are coming online. There's a lot of things that they're seeing that we're not seeing. But there's also right now a huge shortage of stave mills that are causing cooperages to increase prices and reduce allocations of barrels. And we also see that there's more product and more brands on the shelf every single day that are starting to pop up. And this is all just a side effect of what we're experiencing right now inside of what is the bourbon boom. But really, the question that I want to kind of pose to you all is, what do y'all see happening when everything starts evening out? Production goes as planned. There's no shortages of barrels. You want barrels, okay, go ahead and get them. All the distilleries are online. Once we see this happen, are we going to see an overproduction? And then what are some of the near-term side effects that we're going to see of overproduction? Cecil, you're unmuted first. Up to you.
Ooh, this is a loaded question with a lot of variables and what ifs. But yeah, I mean, I'm bad at these predictions because, when it's funny when Bardstown Bourbon Company, started building in a random cornfield and said they were going to contract distill for people. And I was like, they're out of their damn minds. Like, that'll never work. And boy, was I wrong. And now, hell, we're working with them. But
Take our money.
It does feel like we're starting to maybe reach a point where I don't know. There's just so much options on the shelf and so much that's going to be produced in the next 5 to 10 years and so much available because of investor barrels, that there's going to be just so much whiskey on the market that I do feel, I don't want to say a glut, but I do think there's going to be y- you definitely have to have a brand, like a established brand to survive in this climate. I don't think that you're going to have these brands that like Blue Run, who's obviously established now, but just pop up and have success within a year or two. I think that those days have passed. I do think, brands that have established probably within the last five, even counting last year, probably the last 5 to 6 years are going to be okay. You're going to have enough time, but people getting into it now, I don't know. I just feel like there's going to be a really hard time to get your presence known in the marketplace because it's so crowded. There's so many different stories. There's so many different options. It's like there's almost a fatigue with consumers, and we have a brand obviously, and we go out and talk to people, and they're kind of communicating that as well. It's like, you know, and this is not a knock at MG. They're like, how many MGP brands can I have? Or how many, Bardstown Bourbon Company brands, or how many Wilderness Trail brands, how many can we have? How do we differentiate all of these options? And, I do think that it's going to be tough for new people to get into the market unless India, Asia, and all those markets really start to switch from scotch to bourbon. And that's the big what if. And if that happens, all bets are off. We're way underproduced, and it's going to be still another arms race to catch up because India is the number one drinking whiskey country and continent, and by far, U.S. is number two, and I think India is, probably 1,000% more than the U.S. is. And so I think Max Shapiro said if you convert 1 out of every 10 Scotch drinkers from India, it would wipe out all the production that Heaven Hill has done in the past. All those 10, 50,000 barrel warehouses, all the expansion they're doing now, it would wipe it out. So, if American whiskey kind of just still stays, a domestic product, doesn't really expand into Europe, doesn't get popularity in Asia, I think there is going to be a whiskey glut. But if it starts catching on over there, I think, we still got another, and I still do think we have about a 30 to 60-year run of steady growth. I don't think there's going to be this hockey stick that we've had the past 10. And so I'm rambling, and I'd love to hear some other folks, but that's kind of my thought. It's all up to Asia, I think, to where everything goes to the future.
So yeah, I'm gonna piggyback off what you said a little bit, Ryan, and add in a few more things. So I think there's a few key levers here, right? And it's going to be international expansion if that continues to grow at a really rapid pace or steady pace even. It's going to be just consumer preference in the US. Bourbon's always been a boom and bust type of spirit, right? You're going to see cycles of it being really hot and really not. And, will consumers really pivot away and start gravitating towards tequila in mass? So, everyone listening to this, everyone who goes to the website, listens to podcasts, reads the books, they're all diehard bourbon lovers, right? We're probably stuck with this spirit for life and we love it. And that's great. But other folks, not so much. So we do have our blinders on a little bit. Now, assuming that none of those things happen, I think, future 25 year from now, Jordan's going to say, oh man, 2022, that was a great year for bourbon. It just keeps getting worse and worse. But I think if any of those things fall, so if international expansion slows down, Americans change their consumer preference, stuff like that, and there's just this excess amount of bourbon, I think what we're really going to see is more brands continue to pop up, but we're going to see more blending. A lot more blending is going to be taking place. So it's really gotten rooted in the last few years, right? Starting to see a lot more brands become just blending brands, which is awesome. But say 5-10 years from now, there's just this excess glut of bourbon that, everyone is holding on to. They're not sure what to get rid of. Blenders now are going to have more choices than just going to MGP or Dickel. You're going to start seeing others needing to offload some of their barrels, and you're going to start seeing people starting to blend with barrels from large Kentucky distilleries or a lot of the small ones that have, gone extinct, et cetera. So it's either going to be an amazing blending period in 10 years, or everyone's going to be right where they were saying, man, I really wish I bought a lot more when I could, when it was still only $100 a bottle or $80 a bottle, et cetera. It's going to go one or two ways. right? So I think it's going to be really interesting. But a lot depends on, like I said, and what Ryan said, international consumer preference, at home, and going from there.
Jordan, I kind of want to ask you a question about that.
Yeah.
So we kind of looked at this as right now we see a sprawl of brands, we see a sprawl of extensions that are coming from every major distillery.
Yep.
Now, when you think of people that are coming out from the blending side of things, do you think that they'll actually be able to sell their product? I mean, to be honest with you, it's everybody's right now, they're trying to create the new flavor of the month, or maybe it's in flavor of the week of what it is right now. So if somebody's going to try and they're looking at different stocks from different places
Yep.
and try to create this little blending project, is that enough that they can sell and market and build a business off of, or are they just going to get lost in the the ether of all the bourbon bottles that are on the shelf?
No, yeah, that's a really good point, Kenny. And I think it comes down to like anything. I think being a skilled, just like being a master distiller, I think even more so, almost I'd say being a skilled blender, it is really an art, right? I mean, you really, there's different levels of artists. Some are just okay, some are just phenomenal. So I think those who really stand out and those who are really, really phenomenal, they're going to be held up, and those brands will be known, and they'll rise above the rest. And a lot of others they'll come and go, or people won't even know them. They'll be crowded on the shelves, etc. But if you're able to really hone your skill, and I do think being a good blender is a very, very difficult skill to master, especially as you're having to source barrels from different distilleries in different ways, and your variables keep changing. I think you're able to do it really well and hone your craft, you're going to stand out. Even those folks at home, if you think it's easy to blend, go pick like 10 of your bottles and come up with different blends. Pick 3 at a time and start blending, and see how many come out good and see how many come out really, really bad, and just some come out phenomenal. It's really hard to hit that phenomenal one. So those blenders are able to do that time after time. They're going to rise to the top.
That's a good take. Brian, you go ahead. Brian, you just went on mute again.
Microphone did the thing. So I agree with most of that. And the other point that was striking me is I used to think, all right, all of these distilleries are doubling their capacity or tripling it. They're all building everything new in the last 5 years. They're mirroring what they had. They're smarter than me. So I might try to predict something, look into my crystal ball, but they're the ones who look out 20, 25 years from now. And I got to give some credit to what they're doing. But then historically, you look back at the number of times the distilleries have made a mistake about that. And they created their gluts, and they thought the horizon was there, and then the market dried up. So, I mean, I don't know that I'm too rosy about the future and not having a glut. With all of the production that they're going to have, that's going to drown out the smaller folks, because the ones who have all the capacity, if they can't unload it to China and India, it's going to be cheap bourbon for us. So to some of us, hooray for that, but that's going to kill the small producers. It seems like they're putting a lot away right now, and I sure hope India opens up. Because I agree with Ryan. I think that's going to be the key. If that opens up, then there's not enough bourbon, and we get into the problem of shortage of barrel staves and wood that's trees that are growing too fast, so the rings are further apart, and you're not getting the same flavor that you are in your barrels. All those things could be problematic if this continues.
So what you're saying is good potential for the Orphan Barrel 2052 release
That's right.
to really do well.
Yeah.
No shortage of orphan barrels that you're going to find around there. Blake, did you want to add something here?
Yeah, no, I'll jump in. And so whenever we were looking at these questions, I just started looking around. And it's like, hey, what's actually pushing this? And so I don't want to say it's contrary to the other opinions that have been shared, but I don't think we'll see a slowdown. I don't think we'll see growth stop. Maybe we see a slowdown in how fast we're going, kind of what Ryan was alluding to with it won't be the hockey stick. But when you look at who's pushing this market forward, it's a lot of younger people, even from our own demographics at Sealbox. The majority of customers we have, close to 70% at least, are 45 and under. And that's just not a group that will all of a sudden wake up the next day and say, I don't want to drink bourbon anymore. So there'll be some shakeups, there'll be some slowdowns. We'll see brands go under just as more people are competing for the same, dollars at the retail level. But I think we'll just continue to see bourbon grow and expand. And I don't think we're at an end. I still think we're short on barrels, even with all the additional, production capacities and everything we have, because those are years down the road. So that's, if Buffalo Trace is pumping in $1.2 billion, we won't see a drop of that for at least another, 7-8 years, maybe. So that's a whole nother generation that will be coming up and getting into bourbon. And that's millions of people that will be drinking bourbon and will still be at the same thing. I still think that gap between supply and demand is big enough where we've got 20, 30 years at the least, but before we start to see that gap between supply and demand get closer. But that's my take. I actually found this random article. I'll try to find it again and post it, but it talks about the vodka bust it was like 2008, 2009, and they're basically saying, $100 bottles of vodka are done. Nobody does that anymore. Well, people are still drinking vodka. I mean, I think Tito's is still the number one spirit in the country, spirit brand in the country. So, maybe we lose some of the 500, $250 to $500 bottles. I don't think anybody's too upset by that, but bourbon in general is still Bullet, Makers, Jim Beam, all these, $30, $35 or less brands. And I think that section is just going to continue to expand. So,
yeah,
I do like your take there, only because I'm torn on it. I can see where I really want is to grow. It has to continue to grow for all of us that are sitting here right now. A lot of us that are listening to this, the ones that are joining live, we all want it to grow, only because that just means that whiskey's going to get bigger. It's going to get better. There's going to be more options. I know right now everybody's like, oh, I can't get my hands on the next allocated release. Well, guess what? You can just make up a new allocated release every day. And so at some point, you're going to get your hands on one of them. The other side of me also looks at this and I just see, well, the shortages that are happening inside of the current squeeze that we're in right now. And you try to think of, gosh, how can they really recover from this, and how are they going to be able to take care of this? And of course, it'll even out here in a few years. But when we also look at what's on the shelf today and how much more room do we have for all these other distilleries that are dumping in tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars to even put more product out there that are already competing for shelf space. Now, I know that we are looking at the international market, but that is a wild card at the end of the day. That is something that is not a guarantee. You have to have a traumatic shift in culture for something like that to happen. And so just, trying to bet on thinking that India or China all of a sudden is going to pick up on bourbon, if they haven't done it in the past, I don't know, 150 years? Like, what do you think it's going to happen in the next 10? So I don't think that we can put all of our eggs in that basket just to think that international is going to be the one that's going to kind of take it open. So I don't know. I mean, like I said, I'm a little bit torn on it, but I am kind of, I'm bullish in the fact that I want it to grow, but I do see the G word cometh, if you will, and to make sure that, you're not the one sitting there, with your hands out at the end of the day, and all of a sudden everything just kind of falls out from underneath you. If you're going really all in and you're going big, I hope you have a plan of what you're going to be able to do, because just putting whiskey on the shelves is not enough to be able to move it. And you have a real thing of, we know we mentioned it before, but somebody actually put it in here on the chat as well, of buyer fatigue. It is something that is true. It's happening. It's happening already. We talk about This Week in Bourbon literally every single week. We recorded it before we started recording with this. And so there's new bourbon releases happening all the time. And Ryan says it best that bourbon's a perfect product, because as whiskey geeks, we're always going to keep chasing after the next thing because we still want to try it. But at some point, we all have a bunker of shelves that look like Blake's behind ours, or pretty much all of ours, that we have more whiskey that we know what to do with. But that is going to continue to happen. The only thing that I think is, and Ryan has a really good stat, and I'll let you share that too, Ryan, is when you try to look at the amount of cases that were sold and back in the 70s when it was kind of in its height versus the population, what it is now. Can you repeat that for everybody?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have the exact numbers, but it's something like, and I was about to say, this is where I'd see, my first comments were kind of like the downside, but here's the positive side. It's like, I think bourbon peaked in 1970. The population was around 200 million, and I think bourbon sold around 35 million cases with a population of 200 million. And in 2021, this was the latest Discus numbers, bourbon sold 27 million cases. And so there's 10 million cases still left to go in a population that has 330 million people versus 200 million people. And that's just domestically. And two, where so there's obviously room for growth in that. But also too, where I see, still room for growth is you look at the wine. You go to Total Wine and you think bourbon's crowded, go to wine and beer. And you think about wine, if you want to go get a premium bottle of wine, like say Nickel and Nickel, Camus, or, one of those popular brands that's $100, $150, $200 bottle of wine, you can go to any liquor store and get it right then and there. You can't say the same thing about bourbon. Like if you wanted to go and I'm going to have a dinner party and I want a Weller 12, you can't do it, And so I think these distilleries, we had, it's for a future episode, but we had, gosh, I'm blanking on the name from Heaven Hill.
Susan Wall.
Susan, yes. And, basically they're robbing from premium brands because Evan Williams cannibalizing all the premium brands. And so that's why they're expanding, is because they're tired of robbing from the premium brands to fuel Evan Williams and Elijah Craig, so they need, Henry McKenna could be it's only like a 35 to 40,000 case brand, where it realistically could probably be a couple 100,000 cases. Same with, Elijah Craig 18 year and all these different premium expressions. I think people, that's what they want. And that's why these distilleries, I mean, hell, you could probably put as much Weller 107 and Weller 12 or Pappy out there and people would buy it no matter what, And so I think that's the positive, I think, of all these expansions, is that those premium products will hopefully be available to when you want it at all times, for not just like, oh, I got to call some freaky guy in Crestwood to meet up to get, for my grandson's 21st birthday. You just go to the liquor store like you do for a nickel and nickel. And I think that's what the vision I see. That's also the other vision I see that bourbon needs to hit too, is that you just can't go out and get, those premium offerings that you want all the time.
I'll kind of fight back with you a little on that, only because
I don't like to fight back.
Well,
I don't like conflict.
All right, I'll push back a little bit. I only push back just a little bit, only because I know that the consumer, everybody wants 18 plus whatever. Even in the chat, somebody said, what's the side effect of overproduction? Well, it means that in a few years, if it's overproduced, people they have no choice but to hang on to stuff. And so you're going to have some really well-aged stocks. You're going to have some 9, 10, 12-year-old stuff. Now, you're going to get to that point only because some producers who couldn't live through it are now going under. Then they have to sell it off. But I don't feel that distilleries are doing these expansions just to be able to produce more Weller 12. For them to be able to make some money back right away, they're going to keep pushing out to the market of what they currently have, and they're not going to start waiting until it hits those double-digit ages to just then flood the market with a more premium offering. I don't feel that that's going to be the reason that they're going to be doing that. I would imagine that if they're putting the investment in, we all know that whiskey is a waiting game, but they don't want to wait an extra 12 to 15 years to be able to recoup a dime.
I think that's why you see such big expansions, is because they can do both. And that's what they're trying to do, is trying to fulfill both needs. And two, they've made record profits over the past 10 years. So they, why not take advantage of the tax savings and invest in, the whiskey, and you can have best of both worlds, so
true story.
Because the government's so good at spending our money, and Andy
There we
Bashir clearly took credit for all of bourbon's growth yesterday at the Hall of Fame. So
yeah, pretty much.
I digress though.
So you're saying there's life past the hype, and I actually never thought of it that way in comparison to wine. So I really like that point. That makes a lot of sense to me.
I think, either way. So that's an interesting point, Ryan. And I think that actually ties into, say that does happen, or say there's a bust in bourbon and you have all this excess. I think it probably points to two things. And I think I saw it in the comments too. It's a little bit like craft beer, right? So I noticed this as we travel the country. You're going to have distilleries that probably don't do well outside of a city. They're really local, they're really craft, but they have a hardcore following, right? And they don't need to grow to a national scale. They just need to grow to their city scale. And that's it. That's all they have to shoot for. And they're going to be okay. Then you have those large distilleries, if they're able to fulfill and have, you can walk in a liquor store and buy your bottle of Pappy year round, whenever you need to, right? They'll be okay. And even if there's a bust, they'll be able to flood the market. It's those like mid majors, those guys who are trying to like be in between, they're going to be really, really pressed to succeed, and that's going to be the hardest hit. No matter what route you take, it's just going to be hard to compete with that, right? It's hard to compete with people who love a local brand, and it's hard to compete when you have a national brand that can just dump a ton of bourbon into the market, or keep a steady stream of the really, really what's currently allocated stuff in the future might not be, and that's hard to compete against too.
Good points.
All right. Any other kind of final things before we move on to the next one here?
Yeah, I think we go over under on will we hit more than 35 million cases within the next 10 years. So on episode 200, you got to pay up. I want a bottle of Pappy when we're over that.
Well, it's not a problem. You can get on the shelf now, apparently.
It'll be on the shelf by that point. Yeah.
Yeah, and and I sat there and I was at the Bourbon Hall of Fame, and listening to Julian Van Winkle, talk about his father and his grandfather's story, and and it's hard to imagine, that they, had to sell, and financial, hardships and this and that, and and you're like, gosh, are we headed for that? But bourbon was so differently positioned than Old Fitzgerald back then was probably one of the only few premium brands out there, and it was positioned as a a low class, every just working class, and it's just such a different product now that I don't know. You hear all these things and you get buyer fatigue, but I just still think there's still a lot of lot of inches left on that hockey stick to go.
We'll take it. All right, so let's kind of head and let's move into the next question here. And this is one I know David Jennings of Rare Bird. He wanted to be on here to be in at least the chat to kind of talk about this one, but we had to bring it up, and that's because Russell's Reserve, they're debuting an all new annual limited collection called Russell's Reserve Single Rickhouse. And so their inaugural release is getting ready to come out, and this is coming from Camp Nelson C. And it features liquid from 72 barrels that are from now the dismantled 7-story rickhouse of Camp Nelson C. So it's safe to say that this is something that Bourbon Geeks wanted. I think that we have known all along that when you go to a Russell's Reserve single selection, they'll say, oh, this is from Camp Nelson, whatever. Here's this other warehouse. And then all of a sudden, people just start gravitating. I mean, just kind of think back in the days of Four Roses and Tier 6 and Emmy and all these other kind of things that have these hype trains for a little bit. Now, as Bourbon Geeks, we all gravitate towards something. And they clearly looked at this and they said, this is a product that we are going to gear specifically for the whiskey enthusiast and consumer market, because I'm pretty sure all of us gave them the idea of kind of going down this route. However, the price tag for this one is a cool $250. So I want to kind of put it to you all. When we look at a regular Russell's Reserve single barrel selection, we look at this one, which is nearly the same exact thing, maybe a few proof points higher, still non-age dated, but it's around the 10-ish year mark, $250. I want to kind of talk about the price tag. Is it deserving of that premium price tag? Are they looking of just capitalizing on the LTO market? Or is this something that is, maybe it carries its weight?
I think this is a be careful what you ask for situation, so to answer the question, yeah, I think they did the right thing, because this bottle will still sell out immediately. It'll be gone. I really doubt we'll see it on shelves. So, good for them for getting a little more money in and I'm sure that's one that would get flipped on Facebook or wherever else, and sell for a higher price point, even at $250 retail. So I think this is just, kind of what we're talking about before, where it's like, what's going to really keep bourbon growing and everything. And it's constant new LTOs. It's, different ways. Like, is it all that much different than a single barrel pick? Not really. I'm guessing flavor wise, it's really good, but so are some of those single barrel picks from Camp Nelson. But
it's a 72 barrel single pick.
Yeah, I mean it's still a blend, but I'm just saying from a flavor perspective, if you did it blind against some other single barrel picks, I think this is just where the market's going. They're seeing what everybody paid for Russell's 13. They're seeing what everybody paid for the 1998 releases and all that, and thought, you know what, we can get in on that. People have been asking for this. I think it's a cool concept. It really highlights the history of Wild Turkey. So as a consumer, do I want to have to pay that much for every new interesting bottle that comes out? No, not really. But, maybe eventually this one ends up on the shelf. So then if you do want it, it is like that nickel and nickel wine where it's like, okay, I know I have to spend the money, but at least it's here whenever I want to try it. So, I think it's good. I'm excited for it. I want to drink it. Wild Turkey produces some really incredible stuff. So I like it.
I'm right there with you. We all want to try it. That I don't think that's beyond any of us.
But you can't compare it to Russell's Reserve Single Barrel because, well, you can, but you can't.
Wait a minute.
Okay, you can
Which
try
is
to.
it? Which is it?
Yeah, you
But
can try
would you
to
pay
compare
that if you see it on a shelf? Would you?
Yeah, but here's the thing: you can't
tomorrow?
find Russell Reserve single barrels anymore. I mean, we go through it. We used to get our pick of the litter on those, and now we get very few. And that's what's happening to they're harder and harder to come by. And so it's like, okay, if you can't get those, here's your opportunity. It's going to cost you more, but I think it's a supply and demand issue. That you could say, oh yeah, go get you a $55 Russell's pick. Yeah, good luck. I mean, that's the thing, I mean, you could say, okay, how much better is it than the Russell Reserve, standard 10-year that you can get out there? No, that's a great debate, but you can't compare it to, doing a single barrel pick because those are so hard to come by anymore.
I don't think it matters hardly what this is going to taste like. I mean, everybody's right. Yeah, we want it. We want to try it, but $250 is the price, and I'm actually a little bit surprised it's not more. Wild Turkey's been one of the brands that has a little bit been left behind. Well, to a large extent, been left behind on the premium limited edition side. And they're trying to warm their way up to selling something else for $500 a bottle and then $750. And this is just their continued play toward that.
They're still recovering from Diamond. I'm kidding.
That's right. Still got some.
It's funny though.
Brian's still recovering from Diamond, or Wild Turkey's still recovering?
I think it's just me. I'm holding that grudge. Everybody else is fine.
He's already used those credit card points.
If Diamond was released today, it would sell out instantly, right? And I think it goes back to a multiple number of points that was said. But the birth of $500 bourbon, we wrote a really good article on that. It's here, right? Brands are starting to increase their prices. Look at how many bottles we reviewed at just 150, 200 constantly. And Wild Turkey, right? Kamari, they need to be there. They need to have those bottles on the market. We may not like it one bit, but from a consumer sense, they need to be able to say, here's our premium product. This is where you're able to buy. I can't tell you the number of friends and family and also readers that reach out to us, especially those who are like casual in the whiskey game, particularly in bourbon. Hey, I need to spend X amount on a bottle. It's not I want to spend. It's I need to spend because price equals quality in my book, right? And we've talked about this before. So they need that product that's, it's sold out. Okay, but if you see it, I'm going to buy it. Why? Because it's expensive. It must be good, right? We get in our little bourbon bubble or little whiskey bubble, but the majority of consumers still equate, especially in whiskey, thanks to what Scotch did. The higher the price, the more premium it is. And they needed that bottle. And we're going to see more distilleries start doing this. And it stinks, trust me. As a consumer myself, when I go out to buy bottles, I think the same thing. But it's no shock. It's no surprise they're doing this. This won't be the last time either. There's going to be more. We're going to see higher releases probably in a year or two, 300, 400. is it going to start happening? So buckle up because it's not going to be a fun ride.
Do you think they have to destroy a new warehouse every single time they do one of these?
Depends on how much they can add to the price. They might be willing to do that.
Well, I'm just saying,
They need
they
to
took
make
Cape Nelson
boxes.
Cena.
They need to make boxes out of the Rick structure, and then that's how you make it a $1,500 bottle.
Easy $300-400.
That was the
add-on right
Booker's 30th model, right?
Yep.
I think that's what they did on that one.
Yeah, I mean, there's
Geniuses.
there's a lot of good marketing that plays in it. I know Matthew Layton's in the chat, and he's kind of talking about this is a PR play, and I look at this and it is true. Also from a PR standpoint, is that for most of us, especially in the whiskey media, whiskey geeks, we're always paying attention, and there's news every single week. We talk about it, and if you're not in the news every single week, then are you dying? What do you have to talk about? And so for Russell's and for Wild Turkey to only take 72 barrels, hell, they could have done it with half that, maybe in a quarter of that, and still come out with some sort of LTO offering just to stay in the news, just to have something else that they can put out there, drive a premium price tag, and it continues this sort of train of as Brian alluded to earlier, this hype train of like, how can you just continue to keep staying in the news, keep people, consumers on top of your mind and on top of your product. And that is going to be a continual evolution that I think that we're going to see. $250. I think that is, gosh, it pains you to say, is like, I thought maybe, I don't know, 100, I would say a few years ago, we talked about $100 being kind of like the new 50. And I think 250 is the new 100. So we're going to continue to kind of see that go up. But I also want to kind of bring up something else here that Matt Cusick had talked about, as well as David Jennings, when he talked about me, or he sent me a message and he said, you see people right now with these bottles of a black Willet wheated 8-year, and people are paying well over the MSRP of $250. And, it just has their crest on it. But, Willet has this, I don't know, aura about it that people will pay for it no matter what. And it's just an 8-year. And so that's going to be, less age than what you're seeing right now. So it's interesting to kind of see the consumer dynamic and how the consumer really values a particular brand and what they're willing to pay for it as well.
Yeah, but Willet's always positioned themselves kind of as a premium, this is the incorrect word, but I'm going to say it, bougie, bougie bourbon brand. It's beautiful
I don't
packaging.
think that's incorrect.
No, I mean, it's old, age stated, beautiful whiskey, beautiful packaging. It screams like, I'm rich, it's
a luxury brand.
It's a luxury brand.
Luxury brand.
But Russell's has been different. It's been like, you got Jimmy and Eddie, we're everyday working class, this and that. And then it's hard to go from what you're used to. It's a brand identity crisis, I think, from people, because it's almost like they needed to brand it something different than Russell's. They need to do something different, because it's, Russell's is branded as such a, like, an affordable, great 10-year bourbon. And at $250, it's no longer that. So it's, you kind of got a brand identity crisis there. I feel like with Willet, that's been on brand for, as long as they existed.
Very true. Very true.
So what you're saying is David Jennings is going over to Willet instead of Wild Turkey from now on? Is that...
I don't see David Jennings as a bougie bourbon drinker.
Yeah. No, but it is a good point. I mean, I think, unfortunately for Wild Turkey, a lot of people still think of them as 101. Yeah, it's like, oh man, in college, 101 was what we mixed everything with, and that's a hard one, no matter how good the bourbon is. A hard one to fight off, and so I think they're doing that with some of their limited releases, and the bourbon that's in the bottle definitely garners enough quality and everything else to have a higher price point. So I think that's really all it is. But they just have a harder time doing that because of the history of the brand, the other offerings, and kind of where they've been positioned over the years.
Yep, very true. Very true. All right, well, let's kind of move on to our last topic for the evening. So back in February this year, one of Angels Envy's founders, Wes Henderson, he announced his retirement. And this week, Angels Envy announced that Owen Martin will be joining the company in October as their master distiller, and he's coming from Stranahan's. So as a company that has never had a master distiller as a public figure, except for Lincoln Henderson when he was there, when he passed back in 2013, do we find this as a move to find Wes's replacement and to kind of fill that empty void that maybe they're missing?
They need some sort of master blender. Back to those comments earlier, before they need a master distiller, right? I mean, they need with what they push with barrel finishing. That's to me, it struck me as odd that they would feel the need to do this, and they're smarter than me. It'll be a fine play for them, but it doesn't strike me as something that they needed.
So here's what jumped out at me. Well, two things jumped out at me. The first is this kind of moves their, at least as a company, trying to move it away from the Henderson brand, right? So they didn't look internally. They looked at, well, let's not name a Henderson in succession of this, right? So let's bring in an outside face, which was interesting, right, wrong, and different, just interesting, right? And I think it'll do well for the brand. And then the other thing that came in mind was where they were coming from is, man, Stranahan's can't hold on to a master distiller now. So they seem to be the place where, right, people go, and after Rob left a few years later, now they lost another master distiller. It's kind of tough for them. So there was also that domino effect going on too, which I thought was really interesting.
Well, I don't think you can blame anybody for leaving a position knowing that you're leaving something like Stranahan's to go to a place like Angels Envy. Angels Envy is probably known a little bit close.
Oh, I don't blame him one bit for leaving. I'm just saying I think Stranahan's has an interesting, the line of succession there is a little bit more difficult than, and I don't blame him one bit. I would probably hop from.
Yeah, I mean it's probably like a stepping stone.
Would you rather live in Kentucky or Colorado? Well, I don't know. Pros and cons.
Both are very nice in very different ways.
Yeah,
they're a mid-major basketball coach.
Yeah, exactly.
So I kind of actually took this as the opposite of what Jordan was saying. I took this as they brought in somebody to handle more of the production side, and I assume Kyle will take more of a forward-facing, be that person who's constantly on the road, and he's good. And so I think that would be smart for them because it still keeps it in their Henderson family, and with him being not as tied to the actual operations of the distillery, blending, and everything else they're doing in Louisville, he's more open to be kind of the face of the brand as Wes phases out. So that's kind of how I read into it. I could be completely wrong, and maybe that's not the goal at all with this. But to me, it was like, hey, let's take away some of the day-to-day in the heavy lifting so he can phase more into the role of, he already has the knowledge and everything else. He can phase more into the role of where his dad was and granddad of being the face of the brand. But who knows? That's
a fair point, Blake. Let me counter that though, especially in today's climate, right? How many brand ambassadors, especially after Al Young passed away, can you really name for? Well, would an average consumer be able to name for a brand versus a master distiller or master blender, which seems to be equated one-on-one with the brand
Bernie
nowadays.
Lubbers is probably the only one that.
That's so we can name Bernie, but how many consumers know Bernie? Probably none. True.
But that's why I think it's important, because of the last name, to make sure that that there is a Henderson. And then I'm blanking on the other son's name, but I know he's involved as well. But why it's important, you look at being with Fred and Freddie Freddie knows his stuff. Like, he's been in about every position, but eventually there came a time to take on that master distiller title. But that's not the heavy lifting in the distillery. It's still being the face of the brand. So I don't know. It'll be interesting. I'd be shocked if the new master distiller for Angels Envy is going to be the one on the road doing tastings and jumping on famous podcasts like Bourbon Pursuit.
One of these days.
I still think that would be like Kyle and Wes doing all that.
Yeah, I mean, and if that was their goal, and no offense to this guy, he's probably a fantastic distiller and this and that. If you're going to do that, you name somebody that's more well known in the industry. If that's your goal, is to try to get somebody that's been more established, probably with the big 5 or 6 distilleries that people can relate to. Stranahan's probably doesn't relate to Kentucky bourbon people. Um, so I think probably this is more of an operational, like you said, side. And Kyle's he's very good on talking, public speaking. He's very, he can talk with the best of us. He's Wes's son, so let's be real. I mean, Wes is very good dealing with the media and being in the public eye. So I think Kyle will be, but he's also very good at the operational side too. I mean, he's done very well there as well. So it'd be interesting to see how it plays out. I mean, but I agree with Brian. I thought Angel's Envy would be a perfect role to hire some really good master blender, because you're working with all these finishes and whatnot. It's not so much about the distilling. It's all about, creating interesting, unique flavor profiles from the finishes and blending aspect. So I do agree with Brian in that regard. They could have hired me.
Yeah, they could have, but you'd have to decline it. That's I wouldn't let you do it. I wouldn't let you have it.
No, I wouldn't leave
that
you.
For Two Spirits non-compete, you'd have to fight, right?
Yeah.
That's right. But it does concern me that Brian, as our attorney, keeps saying people are smarter than him. He keeps repeating that over and over.
Brian, can we get the names of those people? We'd like to hire them.
So I do want to tack on just one thing to what Blake said, because as you said, that is actually I wish we wouldn't have to do much speculation, because if they did have this idea of, well, Kyle's now going to kind of get out of a lot of the day-to-day operations, potentially start being the new face of the brand, because Wes was not a distiller. He was not a blender. He was the chief innovation officer or chief party officer, or whatever they called him. So it was something that was kind of like a role where he got to kind of do what he wanted. And that was being the face of Angel's Envy, being at all the shows, the concerts, shaking hands with celebrities, and being that person that is how we connect somebody that's with a blue check mark to the name of Angel's Envy. And now, if they're going to take Kyle to that, I wish inside of the press release, they would have said something about, and Kyle is going to be doing this now, because it really left it open-ended for us to start figuring out, well, what is Kyle going to start doing? Is he going to be doing the same thing? Is he going to be moving into the same, a different direction? Has Angel's Envy and the Bacardi family started looking at it and saying, maybe we need to go a different direction on how we are going to position our brand to the consumer? Is it going to be the master distiller that does this? I don't know. I think that kind of leaves a lot of up to speculation. But to kind of echo what Ryan and everybody else said already, is that Kyle he's a great person. He knows what he's doing behind the scenes. I doubt they're doing that, but they're just leaving it up to us to kind of formulate opinions.
And look at the playbook of all the other majors. I mean, it's all about the families that created it. It's, I mean, Centauri could very easily have pivoted from the nose a long time ago, or same thing with Campari, same thing with all the, Buffalo Trace and everyone. They could get away from makers. I mean, they could easily say, we're going to try to distance ourselves from the people that created this. And I don't think that's a wise move, because bourbon has that such connection with the story, and it's a story of someone who's worked hard and worked and sacrificed and built a brand and gave in everything to their passion and soul. And I saw that at the Bourbon Hall of Fame more than ever yesterday, how these people just have literally given their life and all their time to this industry. And I think that's a romantic and poetic story that consumers really latch onto. So I don't think it would be wise to move away from that.
Yeah, I agree completely with that point, and it was on display yesterday at Hall of Fame. I mean, you listen to Jim Rutledge, and the guy he just oozes bourbon, and that's the guy who you want to talk. And you get Fred No up there, and I mean, it's just, you can't top those guys, and you need to keep facilitating that. And Kyle's the person to do that for Angel's Envy, no doubt.
Yep.
So do we get like a consulting fee for giving Angels Envy this great advice about how we think they should handle the next steps in their company?
I'll let you know when the Venmo comes in. We'll split it 5
Yeah,
ways.
yeah.
That's about all I can add to that. Hopefully we'll make that happen. But any other things that we want to add on to this? I think it's an interesting sort of way to see that Owen's going to be coming into this. I'm sure he's fantastic. I know we don't probably know much about his background, but him coming in and taking over the operations, I know it'll be operations, but it'll be interesting to kind of see also what he will be doing in regards of a public facing sort of role as well, if they're going to dual home that with the existing Hendersons and kind of how they're going to blend the family and the history and their story all together too.
I think one more thing to add, and what's exciting is he brings an outside perspective, right? So there might be a lot of innovation coming out of Angels Envy, especially in the next few years, with just some of the thoughts and ideas and things he wants to try out that, the Hendersons might not have thought of in the past. So that's never a bad thing whatsoever for a brand.
I'll challenge you on that one. We have got to be towards the end of how many other types of wine barrel finishes can we put out there, because that's, I honestly don't know how many more you could possibly find.
You never know. I mean, with the definition of American single malt taking place, maybe they'll move into American single malts or stuff like that. There's just so much different ways that brands could go. And I agree, we're probably beyond dead with barrel finishes, but there's other things that you can do out, inside of innovation. So just an outside perspective never hurts.
Yeah, and I mean, American whiskey. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, sorry. I was just going to say single malt was the first one to really do barrel finishes when you start messing around with different casks. So
got to cover up that shit,
That'd be interesting. All right, go ahead, Brian. My bad.
No. I agree. With the American whiskey is not. I think the future. People say we're in a glut too. I think the future is American whiskey is going to be this just exploding category of not just bourbon and rye. I think it's going to be single malts and all this different stuff that we can't even think about right now, that our palates are going to keep progressing in different ways that we don't even know. And I think obviously Stranahan's a malted whiskey, and maybe that's the way they're going. I don't know,
we'll see. Only time can tell, but we had an opportunity to be able to do what we always do best around here, and we will try to think and just ponder up different ideas that may or usually not come to fruition, but it always is a great opportunity to get you all on here and tackle some of really what's happening in regards of recent bourbon news. And I want to go ahead and just give a shout out to myself, because I didn't say potpourri this time, y'all. I know y'all.
Yeah.
You got on me so many times of like, oh, it's a potpourri. I didn't say it this time. It's a hodgepodge. It's a smorgasbord. We had a good roundabout of topics tonight.
Yep. We had a potpourri of comments.
There we go. All right. So let's go ahead. Let's wrap it up. Brian, I'll start with you.
All right. Thanks again. I'm glad to hear that you guys think about what you're going to say beforehand, because I don't know that I do that all the time. But it's good to be on number 72. Brian with Sippin' Corn. Find me on the socials there. Thanks, guys.
Blake.
Yeah, once again, always fun to be here. 72 in a row, the Cal Ripken of the Bourbon Roundtable. I haven't used that line in a while, so I figured tonight was the night, especially when I got off on a shaky start with the audio situation. But yeah, Blake from Sealbox and Bourboner, as always, thanks for having me. This is always fun. Enjoyed it.
For sure. And Jordan.
Thanks, guys. This is Jordan, one of the 3 guys from Breaking Bourbon at breakingbourbon.com. Always happy to be on. And I just want to give out a shout out to everyone on the chat, too. So if you're listening to this podcast and you're not joining these live and hopping on the chat, these are super fun to do live in real time. So hopefully we'll see you live in a future roundtable episode.
For sure. We had around 100 people on this one. Actually, I think it was 110 or 112 at peak. So awesome to be able to have the community kind of join in. Be here live, be able to throw your comments on the chat, and everybody kind of gets a good laugh in the background too.
Yep. And 72 in a row with Blake having technical issues.
There's a few streaks going on with me being on all 72 episodes, but I just want to point out it wasn't me last time. There was somebody else.
Hey.
And I didn't change anything from the last time, and somehow my mic still screws up. So, hey.
That's all those kids, man. They're probably pulling cords.
Yeah, out here playing Minecrafts or something.
It's probably what it is. But guys, I want to say thank you so much for coming on. We had a great bunch of topics that we kind of went through, and we'll be back once again in 4 weeks with even more good things to talk about. There was actually even one that came in the chat earlier from Alan Pawlowski that I think we might have on the next one, and that is, how do you define premium? So that'll be another one we'll talk about in the next one, because when we talk about Russell's Reserve being a premium, well, what actually defines that? So we'll tackle that in the next roundtable. But with that, cheers, everybody. We'll see you next week.
Cheers.
Toodles.
All right. Good stuff.
Good chat, boys.
That was
Yeah,
great.
good one, guys.
Yeah, that was good.
Hey-o,
So
chaps.
I've got something I haven't done in a while. You know, giveaways. I feel like that goes back to the Kerry days of Kerry get too drunk and start saying he's going to give away samples. Does anybody
Oh
need?
boy.
Do a trivia question.
Oh boy.
Yeah,
there's-
Kentucky Bourbon Fest or Bourbon and Beyond tickets. If you're still here in the chats and need a pass, let me know. I have 2 for this weekend that I won't be able to make. So
You knowingly knew you weren't coming to Kentucky, but you took the passes anyway.
they just showed up. I
Wow. We need to be
Didn't
friends
ask
with
for
you.
'em?
Shit
Golly.
just shows up to
no,
you.
I didn't ask. Maybe at some point I did say I was going to try to make it. I don't remember. But yeah, they showed up, and now I feel bad, and so got to make sure somebody gets them.
Oh, I like this. So I guess put something in the chat for, and by the way, only answer if you can make it. Don't him just like ship some tickets to freaking Texas, and you know you're not going to show.
Yeah. So if anybody, we don't have to do it even in the chat, but I was going to use this as if not, they're going on Instagram tomorrow. But if you're going to be in the area, feel free to blake@sealbox.com, shoot me an email. Feel bad. Don't want to go to waste. I know it'll be a good time.
There you go. It's like you don't even have to attempt to answer a random trivia question. He'll just give them to you.
Just first one to say.
Just
Who's-
first come,
who's-
first serve.
Yeah. How
The
quick
answer
can you
is
get to the
Tiger for the
inbox?
Jaguars. Yeah, okay, Matt, you get it.
Yeah, the tight
Dude,
end
if
for
you're
the
going to be in
Jaguars.
town for Florida, Georgia, and I'm not going to pronounce it as Georgia, Florida, because we've got a tailgate and a lot of bourbon ready to go for Florida, Georgia. So
I was surprised our little three-way text didn't fire up this past week, and I figured Ryan be firing all cylinders after that win.
Oh, I know.
I mean,
there were so many texts I was going to send you, and I was like, you know what?
I got absolutely nothing from anybody from Kentucky, and I thought maybe I just don't have friends anymore because literally nobody gave me a hard time about that.
Well,
one.
to be
I took it a
fair,
little
so
hard.
this is why I didn't text you. Like I was at, well, I never mind. I shouldn't tell the story. But
Yeah, let's hear it.
well,
Come
I'll
on.
tell the story. I was at my kids' school fundraiser party. We had this awesome outside party, and there was they rented this big screen outdoor, and I took a gummy, man, and I was just like, I forgot to text you. I wanted to.
That's all.
That'll do it. That'll do it.
I believe there was a song written about that. I was supposed to,
And I got high.
When I got high, there was an entire
Afro Man.
Afro
Those
Man,
are good days.
And then the next day, Sunday, I was like, I'm gonna text Blake a picture of the game, and then I was like, I'm too hungover.
No, that's funny actually.
Oh man.
I made the mistake of going to and from New Riff in one day yesterday. That was not the best
Whoa.
travel plans I've ever done.
Wow, a day
aggressive.
trip. That's aggressive.
5:30 a.m. flight. I think I landed at midnight last night, and I'm like, man, that was a fun trip, but what the heck was I thinking? Like, I should have just gotten a hotel. Kids could have gotten themselves to school on a random Wednesday morning, but
Does CVG fly direct to Jacksonville, or do you have to take a hop somewhere?
through Atlanta.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, I was going to say, if it was direct, it probably wouldn't be that bad.
If it
But
was direct, it wouldn't be that bad, but yeah, it's just like 45 minutes or an hour Cincinnati to Atlanta, and then 45 minutes Atlanta to Jacksonville, which is just annoying.
Sealbox doesn't splurge for the private. No.
No, we're still
Yeah.
trying. We're
Not yet.
Where's
yeah.
the Steelbox jet and all this?
No
yeah,
net
exactly.
jets.
Yep. Still pushing for that one. They kick back and call it, unnecessary and out of budget. But
There you go. I like Alan's take there for you, Ryan.
I took it. Yeah, that's funny.
That's everybody's because Delta 8's legal in Kentucky, isn't it?
I know it's so stupid.
Legal in most states.
Yeah.
It's like,
I haven't done it. I guess I need to see what it's all about.
I mean,
For
what
science,
is
Kenny,
it all
for
about?
science.
Like,
it's just, so Delta 9
is
is the one that. So
legit?
Delta 8 is it's a strain of THC, but it doesn't have the like psychedelic effects as Delta 9 does. So I mean, it's fine. It's like it's good and relaxing. It chills, but I don't know. I kind of like the trippy part of it. So I like I like the 9s.
if they had an 11, you'd take that one.
That's right. Like a
Yeah.
9 is
Well,
more of like you just want to like sit on your couch and go to sleep. Where I mean, sorry, the 8s, the Delta 8s are like more of a like
Indica.
it's like an indica. Whereas I like to go, hey, what's going on? You know,
Oh gosh.
I'm getting myself in trouble. I need to
Yeah,
go.
we all are. We're incriminating ourselves a little bit here, but it looks like there's a lot
that's
of
y'all. I've never in my entire life done any of that.
I didn't inhale.
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of, where's the roundtable trip this year? We had Colorado in January. I feel like we need to start
it's-
planning that now.
October when Jordan and Nick and Eric come.
Yeah, come on down for that weekend, Blake.
Isn't that it?
Am I gonna have to come in October?
Do it. We'll get a bigger Airbnb. You can crash with us.
We can do
Yeah.
what distillery can we get to pay us to come?
But you're going like through the weekend, right, Jordan? Or is it?
Yeah, we're
He's
there.
doing the
I'll
week.
be in Wednesday through Sunday. Like I'll get in Wednesday
Oh.
night. Nick and Eric land Thursday.
You get in late Wednesday, time for
Late.
dinner. or
Oh,
no?
yeah, no, yeah, I'll get in time for dinner. I'm gonna be by myself, so I'll get in whenever. I can get in whenever.
So I
You
could
wanna
do
do
like
dinner?
a
We'll do
Thursday,
dinner.
Friday.
What's that?
I could do like a Thursday, Friday.
You could.
Oh,
We're
yeah.
gonna see Kenny on Saturday or Friday. Saturday.
I'm
Yeah,
in
I-
for the Thursday, Friday, for sure, Blake. If you want to see me,
Okay.
but you probably don't.
Just skip your family, Blake. It's okay. They never see you anyways.
Yeah, they're not worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Let's see.
I feel like we've
It's-
done a pretty good job in 2022 of getting together. I feel like we've all seen each other more this year than we have in like the past 5. It's-
Yeah,
Okay.
Kenny
I
think
won't
I've
be.
seen-
Kenny's in Chicago.
seen
the
Jordan at
6th.
least twice.
Yeah, I was about to say
I've
it's
seen
like 'cause
Nick like
Yeah, a bunch.
I'll be in Chicago the 5th and 6th, and then driving back either the night of the 6th if nothing happens, or I'll be driving back the morning of the 7th. So like I said, I'm game for Friday or Saturday if that's what people are going on.
I'm going to be in DC the 4th and 5th, but I could possibly do the 6th.
You
and
get
7th.
direct
I'd have
from
to-
Baltimore.
There you go. Hey,
Yeah,
hey.
there's direct.
Well, I think there's direct from Reagan, right?
I don't
You
know. I
know,
always
guys,
fly to
I'd have
Baltimore.
to look, but,
I use Southwest
we'll
Points.
see.
I'm a peasant.
And by the
I
way,
don't
we
have a
didn't
private
give Matt
jet.
a shout out. Matt actually went to Old Elk. He actually went to the restaurant there.
Oh,
So
nice.
he went and checked out everything that we did when the roundtable was there for selecting barrels back in February.
Man, their cocktails are so good.
I went there. And
By the way, did those ever go on sale, Blake? They did, didn't they? Okay.
The first 4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are they still
Sold out.
available? We should probably give a shout out if they're still available.
Sold out. Immediately.
we still have some, I think. Yeah,
Okay.
I know the first 4 went up. I think pretty much all 4 still have some bottles left, and then our blend and the finished bourbon will be sometime in the next. I don't think we're too far off.
They're scared to release that blend.
like, month or so. Yeah, That blend
They're
was
scared to
good.
release because they know it was better than their own.
I don't know about that, but
Yeah,
was
you know
good.
they got Greg Metz out of the way and let Ryan Cecil come in there and teach him a
That's
thing
right.
or two.
I
That's
don't-
true.
Knock him out the way.
Yeah, he starts
I-
bringing all these formulas, and Ryan's like, "Nah, I'm good. Just like I just need my 100 mLs. Just we'll figure it out in there."
I know he had all these calculations. I was like, "You're making it way too complicated for me."
I promise I'll figure this out.
But that weeded bourbon, I just opened it. What was it? Friday. Those, not the gummy night, and it was freaking so good. Good Lord, those weeded bourbons! I didn't realize how good they were. Those old elk weeded bourbons.
Yeah, that's something special.
We've got Nick on from Bardstown. So I when do we get a Bardstown roundtable pick is really what I want to know.
Well, that'd be fun.
We can do that anytime.
Let's make it happen.
Yeah, I was like,
if
we
any
We
time
can do
is
a
the,
Bardstown blend. We can do whatever we want at Bardstown.
what do you have, immunity? Just
Confidence.
they're naked and like shooting guns off in the parking lot.
I don't know. Maybe not everything, but
Get away with something, I guess.
Not everything, but we could pick some bourbon. And
Yeah.
although that last pick we did, there was a lot of fun. That was like,
yeah, that was a future pick,
Africa.
wasn't it?
yeah, those are getting close. I think. Yeah, my wife.
Oh, you did one that's still aging?
That's what they're doing mostly right now. Aren't? That's all they're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they won't release anything until it turns 6 at least.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the origin label had to hit as well.
Yeah, which it hits
label.
next year.
Is it? I thought it already hit the TTB.
Yeah, but it won't be out till 2020.
Yeah, that's true. He does. They do owe you one after last week, Kenny. After some random guy gave your phone number out, and
That's true. Yeah, I don't think we. God, I should have mentioned that like this week in bourbon for anybody that's on the chat.
That was actually really funny.
So Bardstown had their national sales meeting last week, and then I'm out at. I think I was out at dinner with my wife, or we were getting ready to go out, and all of a sudden I start getting all these text messages, and they're like, "Hey, you home right now?" I'm like, "Yeah," and they're like, "Hey, can we swing by real quick?" I'm like, "No, what do you want?" And so all of a sudden, they had a scavenger hunt for their national sales meeting, and one of the line items on there was you got 60 points if you got a picture getting a drink at Kenny's bar. And so all of a sudden I'm getting these text messages from people, and so it ended up working out. We had a few groups kind of come over, and they all had a drink at the bar in my basement, kind of like last second sort of thing. So shout out to my wife Lauren for being a cool sport with it. But yeah, there was no heads up or anything like that I was going to be on.
I thought they like would
hunt.
have. You get like a quick text like, "Hey, FYI, we're putting this on our scavenger."
A little bit of heads up, right?
Yeah. No warning whatsoever, but it was fun.
That's why I don't let anyone into my house.
I put my own bar on that same scavenger hunt. Nobody wanted to come to Jacksonville. Surprisingly, it was weird.
It's a road trip. It was hard enough probably getting out to, inside of Louisville, then out to Washoe proper, then back inside. There was a lot of driving involved.
Ooh, sounds like a liability.
Nothing
my
like. Oh man! All right, I'm out.
Yeah.
I'm going to bed.
All right. Good one, guys.
Enjoy
I'm
it.
here. We
This
got
is
a
fun.
long week.
Yep.
Good luck.
Cheers,
Good luck on
everybody.
your tours, guys.
Yep. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you so
All right.
much.
Can't wait to
See you
see
in a
him.
couple weeks. So we'll see you before the next one of these, right?
Yeah,
Well, yeah.
I think so. Right before.
Is that be right before the week before or something?
Right. If we can get Blake down, let's do a live one. We'll make Kenny's
Yeah.
life a living hell. He's like, son of a bitch.
Well, I won't be able to make it Saturday, but y'all can do it without me.
No, we need you.
No, we don't.
Depends
No,
what
I'm just
you
kidding.
You actually don't need me, but
More dead weight. That's what I look at it as.
Maybe Fred will show up for you guys.
Fred will show up.
Probably not.
Yeah,
Probably not.
Probably not.
Probably not.
Who knows? We'll find out.
All right. I need
All
to
right,
go.
guys.
Red,
See ya.
too.
Sounds good, boys. Talk to you
All
later.
right. See y'all
Take care.
later. And thank you, everybody that was in the chat. We will see you at Bourbon Festival this week. Cheers, everyone.
Yep.